In this channel we have talked about very powerful divisions such as the Grobstutland, the 12th Panzer SS Hitler Jugend, and even the Leibstandarte, to which we dedicate a program of more than 2 hours with Carlos Caballero Jurado. Although these are combat units that had a great performance in the Second World War, and that is why they are known by all, today we are going to see the worst divisions of the Waffen SS. And it is that when we think of this military body, the first 12 or 13 are always named, and it seems that it is understood that the rest were just as powerful and effective, but as we will see below, this is far from be like that. Before beginning to enumerate these divisions, let us briefly put ourselves in context to understand in what circumstances they were created, and how they came into action. Although by the middle of 1944 the chances of a German victory had long since vanished, it was not until that summer that all alarms within the Third Reich went off. Following the breakout of the Normandy Front, and the total defeat of Army Group North and Center on the Eastern Front, the Allies were within a few miles of Germany's original border, and material and soldiers were needed everywhere. It was at this time that German civilians lost all the privileges that they had been able to maintain to date, and it was also here that all kinds of divisions began to be formed rapidly. The vast majority were made with men who until now had been considered unfit for combat. This was mainly due to the fact that they did not meet the appropriate physical or age requirements, or because they were directly injured or had a health problem. However, by the end of 1944, they had all become combat ready. The climax was when at the beginning of 1945, the Soviets attacked the Vistula front in full force and completely shattered the German army. It was here that Project Luthen had to be activated, which we have already talked about in a program, but which basically consisted of hastily sending all the recruits who were being trained in the different training centers to combat. Sometimes they became part of divisions that already existed, and other times, they were used to create new divisions. This is the context in which the following divisions of the Waffen SS that we are going to see next were created. First of all, we have the 32nd Division of the Waffen SS, called the 30 Januar. This division had its origin during the days of January 26 to 30, 1945, in a critical situation in which the Soviets were already a few kilometers from Berlin. Its name is due in part to the date on which it was created, which alludes to the anniversary on which Hitler was elected Chancellor of Germany on January 30, 1933. The division was composed of veterans of the Waffen SS who, due to their injuries, had been discarded for combat, but now, they were being called up again. It is striking that some of its members even came out of the hospital directly. To this we have to add other members who belonged to the police, or administrative personnel of the SS. The general morale of this division was quite low, and it did nothing but reduce when they saw that they had neither tanks nor practically artillery. One of them commented that this was not a division, it was rather a pile of scrap sewn on the run. Without a doubt, this type of action gives us a good idea of how desperate the situation is. Later to this division a small detachment of tank destroyers was added, which could slightly increase the combat value of the unit. By the first days of February the division had about 12,000 soldiers of all kinds that could be mustered, and was sent to the Oder as a reserve of General Bussy's 9th Army. Once the Soviets attacked in mid-April 1945, the division was torn to pieces in a few days, unable to do anything but retreat. After being continually surrounded, the remnants of the division were able to cross the Spree River and surrender to the Americans. No important decoration is known to any member of this unit. The next unit we are going to look at is the 35th Waffen SS Division, dubbed as the SS Police Grenadier Division. This division was created on February 10, 1945 with remnants of other units and mainly with members of the German police. With a greatly reduced force of both men and materiel, she was rushed into combat on the Eastern Front. When the Soviets attacked on April 16, this police division was overwhelmed and left isolated and divided into small groups in the outskirts of the city of Lublin. Some members of this division were able to withdraw to Berlin to succumb there with the capital, and others withdrew to the Elbe River to surrender to the Americans. The last division of the Waffen SS that was formed during the conflict is the 38th Nibelungen Grenadier SS Division. This unit was created on March 27, 1945, practically a month before the end of the war. For this, remains of other Waffen SS divisions that had been torn to pieces such as the 6th, 7th, and 30th were used. To this we have to add an amalgamation of SS customs officials and members of the Hitler Youth. The 6,000 troops of this division were sent to the Western Front to defend a strip of about 35 kilometers in the vicinity of the city of Kelheim, north of Munich. Due to their weakness, they were unable to hold off the Americans and were easily overwhelmed. Although they were unable to fulfill their task of defending that stretch of the Danube, during the first days of May 1945, this division reorganized and was able to carry out a counterattack near Oberwössen that pushed the Americans back. This is considered one of the last tactical successes of the Waffen SS, because a day later, specifically on May 5th, they received the ceasefire order from Admiral Dönitz. A few days later, Germany signed the unconditional surrender. Again, there was no time for any of the members of this division to receive a Knight's Cross. In addition to these divisions that we have named whose main nucleus were German men, there were many more that were formed around the same time with volunteers from countries that were either already occupied by the Allies or were threatened. Italians, Hungarians, Slovaks, Dutch, French, and Estonians were the ones who made up these last divisions of the Waffen SS, which with a very small number of material and troops were used for the last defense of the Reich. Of course, within the German regular army, there were other divisions that were created in a hurry during these months, made up of all kinds of recruits, each one more unique. As is evident, most of them performed quite poorly due to their poor training, experience, and material. And so far this program in which we have talked about units that do not usually have any type of mention. I hope that the topic has been interesting for you and that it has helped you to better understand how the last actions of the German army in the war were. I leave you in the description the special program we did with Carlos on the Leibstandarte. We say goodbye here. Many thanks to everyone, especially the sponsors who make this possible. Subscribe and share this program if you liked it, and see you in the next one. See you soon.